Four-time world champion Sebastian Vettel is revving up the excitement in the Formula One world with his latest revelation. He's not ruling out a return to the adrenaline-fueled tracks. Despite hanging up his gloves and helmet in 2022 after a tough stint with Aston Martin, the 36-year-old racing ace is far from feeling past his prime. In fact, Vettel recently confessed that if the opportunity aligns perfectly, he could be back in the driver's seat, ready to reclaim his spot among the elite racers. With 13 coveted seats up for grabs on the upcoming grid, Vettel finds himself contemplating a thrilling comeback. And why not? With seasoned drivers like Fernando Alonso proving age is just a number by racing well into their 40s, Vettel's hunger for competition remains unquenched. The better the car, the better the team, the more exciting it is in terms of having the prospect of being successful, said Vettel when speaking to Radio X in the UK. I'm following the sport, I see what's going on. And a return might be appealing and interesting. But it really depends on the full package because it is a big commitment as well, with all the other stuff going on outside the driving activity. To seriously consider, it would very much depend on the package. From an age point of view, I feel bloody young with all the guys that are still hanging around and signing big contracts, being around for longer. It looks like I could have another 10 years in the sport. So I'm definitely ahead of them in terms of keeping fit. With Lewis Hamilton set to make a dramatic move from Mercedes to Ferrari in the upcoming season, the coveted seats at the Silver Arrows have become some of the hottest tickets in Formula One. Amidst the buzz surrounding potential driver lineups, Sebastian Vettel, ever the enigmatic figure, recently shared his thoughts on the prospect of joining the Mercedes powerhouse. In an interview with Sky Sports, Vettel was posed with the intriguing question: how would he react to an offer to drive for Mercedes? Vettel would respond with, "I've had conversations with him, Mercedes boss Toto Wolff, not really about the seat. We did speak about the whole situation in short as well, but I did speak to others as well because I'm still keeping in touch every now and then. I have some projects and ideas together with F1. We'll see if they will turn out or not, so I am staying in touch. I don't know, it has to be a couple more phone calls and conversations, I guess, to really find out a little bit more. But for sure, Mercedes is one of the best seats on the grid." While the prospect of a return to the high-octane world of Formula One undoubtedly ignites a spark in Sebastian Vettel's racing spirit, there's a significant consideration tugging at his heartstrings: his precious time with family. Vettel's decision to step away from the sport was, in part, fueled by the desire to prioritise moments with his children over the relentless demands of the racing circuit. However, contemplating a comeback means potentially sacrificing those cherished family moments once again. The four-time champion candidly acknowledges that this is a pivotal factor weighing on his mind as he ponders his racing future. Balancing the thrill of competition with the precious bonds of family life presents a formidable challenge for Vettel. Yet, as he deliberates over his next move, it's clear that his devotion to both racing and family will play a defining role in shaping his decision. "It is a decision that I take for myself, but I take for the family as well," added Vettel. "The kids have already said that they love it the way it is now. They wouldn't really support big time to go back, but they said that without me asking, to be honest. Depending on the car, it will be something that we discuss together, obviously." As I mentioned earlier, these talks between Toto and Vettel only happened because arguably the team's golden boy will be bidding farewell to the team at the season's end. Knowing that the seat he'll be vacating will be up for grabs, Hamilton was asked if he welcomed the idea of Vettel occupying his former seat. Hamilton would respond with, "I would love for Seb to come back. I think he would be an amazing option for the team. A German driver, a multi-world championship winning driver, someone who has got amazing values and can continue to take this team forward. I would love it if he came back." The seven-time world champion would then be asked why the likes of Vettel, Schumacher and Alonso can't seem to shake off the Formula One bug. Hamilton would respond with, "You're always going to miss it. It's the greatest sport in the world, the greatest experience in the world. It's the most amazing feeling to be working with a group of people towards winning and achieving something. For me, there's nothing that's ever going to feel the same." His teammate George Russell was also asked about the prospect of having Vettel as his teammate come next year. The young Brit would respond with, "Sebastian's a great person, and he's a four-time world champion. And, for sure, his personality is missed on the grid. But as I said before, I'm really happy and open to have anybody as my teammate. Whether it's world champion, whether it's a rookie, it doesn't change how I go about my business. And yes, as I said, we'd welcome anybody." As it stands right now, Mercedes is currently the fourth best team on the grid behind Red Bull, Ferrari and McLaren, with a minuscule lead over Aston Martin. If Toto and the crew want to entice top-tier drivers, the team must address its issues with its car before thinking of signing the likes of Sainz, Vettel and Verstappen, should the rumours be true. One thing all these candidates have in common is that they would not waste their time driving for a fourth-best team. Currently, Mercedes find themselves having trouble with circuits with numerous high-speed corners like the likes of Saudi Arabia, and the upcoming race in Suzuka. But why exactly, you may ask? Technical Director James Allison believes that the team is sorting out the puzzle pieces of their very moody W15. In their recent race debrief video, Allison would say, "We are starting to see a pattern emerge that most weekends we have a period in the weekend where we are feeling confident about the car, but then in the paying sessions in qualifying and the race, that slips through our fingers. If we were trying to draw that pattern together, then probably the strongest correlation that we can make at the moment is that our competitiveness drops when the track is warm, when the day is at its warmest and therefore the tyre temperatures rise with those of the track. That gives us some clues about what we need to do as we move forward from here." From FP3 to qualifying in Melbourne, there was not a setup change. But the bad news, according to Allison, is that the team is unsure if these problems can be remedied with quick setup changes on track, or if more drastic design changes are required. If you've identified correctly an accurate assessment of why our competitiveness waxes and wanes, then you can work into the weekend a program that is dedicated towards trying to move the temperature and the temperature balance front to rear in your favour and using all the conventional setup tools on the car, he added. That work you can do back here in the factory and the simulation and so on. But if you conclude, having exhausted the degrees of freedom that you have available to you in setup terms, that you still need to go further, well then that gets harder at that point. That will be that there are underlying characteristics in, say, the aerodynamic map that you've engineered or the suspension characteristic that is aggravating that particular feature. In order to make it really heal up nicely, then you would have to change those underlying features. It can be either quick and dirty or a little more involved and a bit more complicated. Mercedes is gearing up for a monumental overhaul with the introduction of the W15, signalling a determined effort to reclaim its dominance after enduring a tumultuous couple of years. With just one race win under its belt during this period, the German powerhouse is leaving behind the ill-fated zero-pod concept that marred its previous campaigns, opting instead for a fresh approach aimed at delivering a more cooperative and adaptable machine. George Russell, who's been keeping a close eye on Mercedes' progress, offered a glowing review of the team's latest creation following pre-season testing. Describing the W15 as a stark departure from the temperamental diva of the past 2 years, Russell's assessment hinted at newfound confidence within the Mercedes camp. However, amidst the optimism, a concerning issue has resurfaced. The dreaded porpoising phenomenon, which has plagued several teams at the onset of this ground effect era, has made an unwelcome return for Mercedes. When pressed about whether lingering issues from the W15's troubled predecessor persisted, Russell's response hinted at the challenges still lurking beneath the surface. "I would say this year's car is a totally different race car, to the point that the things we learned from last year in the way we were setting the car up, we will need to approach it differently this year. So, there's a lot to learn about this, and it feels much closer to how a race car should feel. But the one area that we need to continue to work on is probably the bouncing that we're seeing. We got caught up with a bit of bouncing last week. We were pushing the car really aggressively. But as I said, we're dealing with a totally different beast this year. Whereas 2022, 2023, they were both cut from the same cloth. Despite the resurgence of the porpoising phenomenon, George Russell remains upbeat about Mercedes' ability to tackle the issue head-on this time around. Expressing his optimism, Russell pointed to the team's proactive approach, emphasising that they are actively pushing the boundaries, even in these early stages of development. Now, we're still pushing the boundaries, to be honest, and exploiting the limitations of the car that we're testing this for, he added. I'd like to think you'll be seeing much less of that this weekend, so 3 years on, I think a lot of teams can still enter this circuit and set the car up in a too low and aggressive manner. But it's always a fine line because that's where the downforce is. Beyond grappling with the bouncing issues encountered during testing, George Russell acknowledges that Mercedes faces another crucial hurdle: unlocking additional downforce to vie with the formidable Red Bull squad at the pinnacle of Formula One. However, there's a silver lining amidst the challenges. Russell highlights Mercedes' success in ironing out the temperamental rear-end characteristics that plagued its previous W14 model, dubbing it spiteful. With this obstacle conquered, Russell believes the team's engineering prowess can now be laser-focused on enhancing performance. I'm confident the development slope of this car should be greater than we've seen in the past 2 cars, because we've got a better platform, Russell asserted. But it's just outright performance Mercedes need to find. The car is feeling nice to drive. It's feeling good to drive. But we're just lacking downforce. So do you think Mercedes will be able to entice these top-tier names even with a subpar car? Let's chat about it in the comments section. And while you're at it, hit the subscribe button if you haven't.